Sydney's regional championship was a couple of weeks ago, and Drew Bliss arose as a champion, but he did it so with a fairly unique and complex team that featured a Pokémon we don't usually get the chance to see. Hisuian Zoroark is the regional variant and extremely optimized form of the Unovan Zoroark. This Pokémon is quite unique, not only in its amazing typing, that being normal and ghost, that grants it 3 immunities to both fighting, normal and ghost type attacks, but also in its ability, Illusion. With Illusion, Zoroark can masquerade itself as the last non-fainted Pokémon in your party, and this allows for a plethora of defensive or offensive plays that can mess up with your opponent's plan and grant you the upper hand. Zoroark enables an amazing playstyle, where you yourself must deceive your opponent, disrupt their game plan, and deliver a swift defeat to them. But I guess its Pokédex entry is starting to make more and more sense. And so, let's jump into the team breakdown. This is the team that Drew Bliss utilized to reach the first place into the Sydney Regional Championship, and this team is really cool. I do think that this team does have a good degree of complexity. That is because of this Pokemon here. I think that this team is complex and is a team that you have to put some hours into to actually master not only the utilization of this Pokemon, but of its ability, and of course the utilization of this ability together with your remaining Pokemon, like for example with the King Gambit and the Regidrago. I think that this is why this team is so hard, not only for you to use, but for your opponent to predict what you're going to be doing. But yeah, let's just talk about the Pokemons that we have here. Then we will talk about some core strategies and things to take away, and then we will go into the battles. But of course, if you are enjoying the video so far, do subscribe. If you are enjoying the video so far, don't forget to support the channel by leaving a like or subscribing. Even a comment helps a lot. For example, if you say a team that you would like to see, that would help me a lot, because then I could do a special video about it, which would be really cool. But yeah, let's talk about the Pokemons that we have here. The start of the show is, of course, this Zoroark. Hisuian Zoroark is extremely good. It is extremely offensive. It does have a 125 special attack stat and a 110 speed. This is extremely important because 110 speed is actually pretty solid, and the special attack that it has is massive. And if you are utilizing stale moves like you have here, Hyper Voice, Shadow Ball and the Terra Blast, which is a good tech piece to have in this Pokemon, together with the Life Orb and Style Terra type, and with the support of the Helping Hand, you will be just destroying most Pokemon. I think this is a fantastic Pokemon, and I just have a lot of interest in utilizing it. I think it's a really frail Pokemon, and you do have to be careful about it. Like I said in the previous video that I did, priority moves are really strong, and you can see that by this team also having 3 priority moves, those being Sucker Punch, Grassy Glide and Aqua Jet. This Pokemon is really prone to that. That is also because this team does not have a way of redirecting, right? You do have support on the Whimsicott and the Rillaboom, but they cannot redirect any attacks, right? So this Pokemon is really weak against priority based Pokemon. So I think that you do have to play around that quite effectively. This Pokemon does have a spread move on Hyper Voice, which is extremely strong. the Shadow Ball is really good, but is more of an option, of a niche option, because you do not have a lot of Pokemon that are ghost types or that are going into ghost types, right? But Shadow Ball is still really good because you can just, for example, straight up KO Pokemon like Terra Ghost Whimsicott. You can just KO Fluttermines. If you go for the Terra Stellar Helping Hand, the Fluttermine is down, so that is really good, especially if you can just disguise this Zoroark for other Pokemon, right? Yeah, the Terra Blast here is really good. And why is that? You will always have stab on Terra Blast, so is an 80 base power move that is going to always be stab. And the cool thing about it is, with the Stellar Terra type, this Terra Blast is always going to be effective against any terrestrialized Pokemon. Is always going to be super effective against those types of Pokemon. So it means that not even, for example, Raging Bolts that are going into Terra Fairy are going to be safe from this Pokemon's damage output. Hyper Voice, Solo Hyper Voice or Terra Blasts actually do a lot of damage if they are single targeted. Along of the games, I was kind of surprised of how much damage this Pokemon was able to dish out, but yeah, really good. Like I said, sorry for just jumping around, but yeah, I was looking at the EVs. As you guys can see, it's an extremely offensive Pokemon, and it does have 4 EVs in the special attack, in the special defense, sorry, but this is kind of worrisome because I was in a couple of games where the Raging Bolt would freely click Thunderclap, right? I don't have any way of redirecting Thunderclap, as I spoke of, and this Pokemon would just get one shot. That's how strong Raging Bolt is and how frail this Pokemon is. So if you want to utilize Zoroark, I would say to go or a little bit bulky, give it a little bit more investment onto the special defense side, or have Pokemon that can redirect those attacks, meaning that maybe you just won't utilize the Rillaboom and you would sub the Rillaboom for an Overbond, for example, or another Pokemon that has Follow Me. Clefable could be an option, but I still don't know about it. I would have to think a little bit more about that option. But yeah, really frail Pokemon that can dish a lot of damage. It's a Glass Cannon Pokemon, okay? So, let's talk a little bit about the other Pokemon in this team. We do have the Regidrago, which is not a Pokemon that we are seeing that much, actually. It was a Pokemon that was really prevalent at the beginning of the metagame, as you guys can see and check out on my videos that I did on the beginning of the regulation. Regidrago was like a top contender on this meta, but then people just stopped using it and opted out for other Pokemon. But this does not mean that this Pokemon is weak by any means, but it's a Pokemon that just needs a lot of support, in my opinion, to succeed, because it is not particularly a fast Pokemon, nor a Pokemon with a lot of special attack. It's just a Pokemon that has a 200 base HP stat, which is really good, but his defenses are kinda lackluster. So to make this Pokemon succeed, you need Pokemon like, for example, this Whimsicott that has Tailwind and Helping Hand. Fake Out always helps, right, to set up just the Dragon Energies or the Draco Meteors, for example. But yeah, I think it's a good Pokemon. It is a really threatening Pokemon, but in my opinion, in the current format, or how the meta is right now, it isn't a Pokemon that inspires a lot of fear into your opponent, and a lot of opponents are just going to disregard this Pokemon because you just need a lot of setup for it, I think. It does hit really hard, especially with the Modest Nature and the Dragon Fang, and its ability, Dragon Maw, of course. but you do need a little bit of support. And I think that either you build a team that is built around this Pokemon and into his multi-hitting move, not multi-hitting. And into his Dragon Energy, or you have a Pokemon that is good, but the team doesn't elevate it into excellence, I would say. And this metagame is really stacked. It has a lot of good Pokemon, and I think that losing a slot into this Pokemon might not be the best option. Okay, so if you want to utilize Regidrago, you need a lot of support for it. I don't think that this is enough. Especially because you now have Fluttermanes running out. The Fluttermanes are basically in every single team right now, right? So it just negates your strongest moves, and you only have the Earth Power. And then you also have one of your top contending Pokemon, that is the Raging Bolt, and Raging Bolt is Terra Fairy. So I mean, it's a really strong Pokemon, but I think you need to really build a team around it and not around other Pokemon, you know. But it's a strong Pokemon. Then we have the Kingambit. Kingambit in this team is really important because it's going to enable a really good synergy with the Hisuian Zoroark, but that is something that I will be talking at the end of this breakdown, okay? But yeah, we do have here a Safety Goggles Kingambit. Safety Goggles is extremely important into this Pokemon because it's going to give you a good matchup into Amoonguss. Amoonguss right now does not have Pollen Puff, it does have Sludge Bomb, Spore, and Rage Powder, so it does not, if you have the Safety Goggles, the Amoonguss does not have a way to just defeat your Kingambit, so it's a really good answer. If the Amoonguss is Rocky Helmet, you could have some issues, right? But I don't think that Amoonguss will pose a lot of issues against this team. But it is a good answer into Kingambit and into Urshifu, as well as Rillaboom and Whimsicott. So Amoonguss is really strong, and you have to prepare for it with this team. But that's not the point. We are talking about Kingambit right now. But yeah, Safety Goggles, extremely good option into this Pokemon. Having a Spore immunity alongside with the Rillaboom and Whimsicott is really good, okay? You then have the Terra Flying, which is also really cool because one of the Pokemon that are more common right now is Landorus. Landorus currently uses Earth Power, right? And Earth Power is super effective against Kingambit. If you go for the Terra Flying, it's not going to be doing anything to you. But Landorus also has another move, and that is a poison type move of Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb does not affect Kingambit if it remains a Steel type, right? So if you are facing Landorus and you do have your Terrestrialization available, you do have to play a little bit of a mind game with your opponent of, am I going to Terrestrialize my Kingambit into Terra Flying and then you can't hit your one-shot Earth Power, or am I going to remain a Steel type and you're going to use a Sludge Bomb, you know? So you do have to play a little bit of a mind game against that Landorus. But yeah, I think this Pokemon is fantastic. This is basically the most common IVs that you have. I think that the utilization of some EVs into the special defense stat is really important because special attacking Pokemon are really prevalent. That's one thing that we are seeing more and more. Special attackers are just on the rise, as they always have been, right? But they're really prevalent, and having a little bit of investment into the special defense stat is really important. You have the normal moves of Kowtow Cleave, Sucker Punch, Iron Head. You also have access to Protect because you are not using Assault Vest. Sucker Punch is extremely important. It's a way of the King Gambit to enact pressure onto your opponent, so it's always a really good move to have and to just threaten your opponent. So yeah, it's really good. Having Sucker Punch is also amazing because with the Sucker Punch you now have 3 priority moves, which means that you are actually quite good against teams that have Tailwind up, because you can just ignore the Tailwind and use your priority moves, of course. So I think it's a good option, and it's good team building to have a lot of priority attacks, in my opinion. Now on to the Urshifu. This Urshifu is an Urshifu that I really like. It is not the Choice Scarf set. I think that Choice Scarf set is pretty good, but I think that the Mystic Water one is just way more effective. Okay, I do like Mystic Water and Life Orb Urshifu, but because we have the Life Orb onto the Zoroark, this Urshifu is Mystic Water. A really good tech into this Pokemon is its Terra type, and this Terra type is amazing. Like we've been seeing, especially with the team that Carrie Tortona used to win the Toronto regionals, which had the Terra Fire Urshifu. I mean, a lot of people have been just opting out for the Terra Fire instead of the Terra Water or Terra Steel. Running the Terra Water is really iffy because you have Rillaboom that has Grassy Glide, and you have Raging Bolt, which is a direct counter to Urshifu because it has Thunderclap, and Urshifu cannot damage it that well, because if it remains a Dragon type, Surging Strikes won't do much. If it goes into the Fairy Terra, Close Combat won't do much, so you do have to play a little bit of a mind game. But going into the Terra Fire is amazing for another reason. Ogerborn Fire has been rising up in usage, and if you guys have noticed, fire and grass type attacks are not effective against fire types, right? And this is a way for this Urshifu to, instead of losing to Ogerborn, actually just winning all the trades against it, because Pikachu won't do much, because this Pokemon also has a lot of defense, like base defense, right? And Wood Hammer and Grassy Glide won't do that much either. All of the Ogerborn attacks are not very effective, and yeah, this Terra Fire option is fantastic. It also gives you a better matchup against Incineroar, because now the Incineroar does not have good damage against you. Knockoff, it could go for the knockoff, but I mean it's just knockoff, right? And if it goes for the Flare Blitz, is always just not very effective, and it cannot burn you because you are a fire type, so these close combats will always hurt. This is the standard set of 252 attack, 252 speed, and the adamant nature. It also has just the normal moveset for Mystic Water Urshifus, that being the Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, and Protect. I just really wanted to talk about this Terra Fire option on the Urshifu because it's amazing. I really like it. It also gives you a really good matchup into Fluttermanes, because Fluttermanes are not running Shadow Ball anymore. They are only Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam variants right now. So yeah, they just don't have a way to hit you for super effective, and that means that you are just free to just Surging Strikes it and just KO it, because even if they are max HP and max defense, with the Mystic Water they just don't stand a chance. This is why Mystic Water is amazing. You just get KOs onto Pokemon that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Yeah, just an amazing Pokemon with an amazing Terra. Now on to the Rillaboom. Rillaboom is really good. It really gives you a good balance score into, like, for example, Urshifu and King Gambit. I think it allows you for just, you know, interchangeable Pokemon, and allows you to pivot a little bit. Well, you don't have a fire type Pokemon here to get that grass, fire, water core, but you do have two Pokemon that can just be fire types with a Terra type. So in a way you kind of complete that core. So yeah, it's really good. The only thing that you have to be careful about is when to terrestrialize, because a lot of Pokemon in this team want to Terra, especially this Urshifu. So you need to be really careful of when you terrestrialize. Now now the Rillaboom here is pretty much the most common set. You don't have a lot of speed investment, and believe me, this is really important. Being faster than other Rillabooms, I mean, it's really important. I've lost games because I wasn't faster than other Rillabooms, and yeah, I really felt the need for a little bit more speed into this Pokemon, but that's totally okay. We do have a lot of attack investment, which is going to enable us to get a lot of KOs, especially into more bulky Urshifus that we are now post EUIC seeing. So it's really important, and it's a really consistent Pokemon. I think that even against, for example, Raging Bolts, this Pokemon can just put out a good amount of pressure. It does have the high horsepower, but if the Raging Bolt goes for the Terra Fairy, this Wood Hammer is doing a lot of damage. And yeah, I think it's a good answer into the Raging Bolt. Not the best. Actually, I think that in this team you don't actually have that good of an answer to Raging Bolt. So yeah, I actually have to play a little bit more games with this team to see how you win against Raging Bolt if you just don't instantly KO it with the Zoroark, right? You do have your King Gambit and Urshifu that can play around the Raging Bolt, but it's a little bit hard. But yeah, Assault Vest is really important. Like I said when I was talking about King Gambit, a lot of special attackers in this meta, so Assault Vest is one of the best items that a Pokemon can have right now to make you more durable. And so now let's talk a little bit about the Whimsicott. Whimsicott is a really strong Pokemon. I think it's a Pokemon that has a lot of versatility. It is a Pokemon that you can do almost anything with, and this is a Pokemon that does just that. It does have the talent for speed control, Moonblast, Helping Hand, and Encore. Tailwind is extremely important in this team because Tailwind will allow this Pokemon to just thrive. Your main attackers will just thrive with this Tailwind speed boost, because it will allow you to just output a lot of pressure. Tailwind is extremely good, especially with the Zoroark and the double ghost that you can have in your lead. So yeah, it's a thing to consider always. Moonblast is just a way to damage Raging Bolts, for example, or just do a little bit of consistent damage into almost anything. It's also good against Urshifu. Speaking of Urshifu, this Pokemon is actually EV'd to counter Urshifu. And why is that? Well, like I said, even though Mystic Water is now extremely common, when this team was made, the Choice Scarf variant was still the predominant one. And so, this Whimsicott has EVs that allow it to survive a Surging Strikes, non-boosted Surging Strikes, if it goes into the Terra Ghost. This means that if you see an Urshifu or a Choice Scarf Urshifu, you do not need to be afraid if your Whimsicott is Terra Ghost, because Urshifu just cannot KO you if it is not Terra Water or Mystic Water or with the Rain Dance up, right? So it's a really important thing that will actually make you win games, because your opponent will not be accounting for that. They will see just the focus dash and they will think, oh, this is just a max attack, max speed Whimsicott, and I can KO it if I go for the Surging Strikes, which will not happen. So yeah, really good thing to consider. We also have the Helping Hand. Helping Hand is massive when you have Pokemon that just can do a lot of damage, which all of these Pokemon can. Even the Realboom, because it has a lot of speed, a lot of attack investment, and it has the Grassy Surge ability. But Helping Hand is amazing with this Hisuian Zoroark or the Regidrago. It will allow you to just sweep through teams. This Pokemon having Protect is really important, because if need be, you can just Protect first turn, Tailwind, and then next turn you can just Dragon RNG or Hyper Voice and Helping Hand, and your opponent's Pokemon will just explode. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind. And then you have the Encore. Encore is really good because it can just shut down a lot of Pokemon, especially annoying Pokemon like Raging Bolt. If the Raging Bolt is just pressing Calm Mind, hey, humble that Pokemon. Go for the Encore. That Pokemon will keep Calm Minding and you can just demolish it with the Kingambit or the Urshifu. So, or even the Realboom. So it's really good. A Pokemon protects, well, I'm just going to Encore their Protect. Now your opponent is forced to switch. So, I mean, it's a really good move. My Whimsicotts always have Encore, just because of how strong it is. So yeah, really disruptive piece. This Whimsicott does a lot to your team. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about leads and synergy. This is something that I will talk about in the video that I will do about the Hisuian Zoroark and how to use it. But Hisuian Zoroark is really good with Kingambit. And why is that? Well, the Zoroark is normal Ghost, right? So it is immune to Fake Out, it is immune to Fighting type moves, and is immune to Ghost type moves. Ghost type moves don't really matter right now, because not a lot of Pokemon are running Ghost type moves. But normal type and Fighting type moves are extremely important, because let's say that your opponent has an Urshifu. Well, you can utilize your Zoroark to disguise of Kingambit, and then the Urshifu is just going to go for the close combat, and well, it will not do anything because it was not a Kingambit, it was an Hisuian Zoroark. So disguising yourself as a Pokemon that would otherwise take super effective damage of Fighting type moves is extremely awesome, and Kingambit is a Pokemon that can allow that. Another thing that is really important is the fact that he's immune to Fake Out. You have some Pokemon in this team that do not want to get Fake Out. That is the Regidrago, that is the Urshifu, and that is the Kingambit. They do not want to get faked out, okay? And your opponent, when you are playing with it, with him or her, he will know the Terra types that you have, right? So neither of these Pokemon have the Terra Ghost, so they are all weak, let's say, weak to Fake Out. And so your opponent might think that a balanced team can just or a balanced strategy where you rotate fake outs can just leverage a bigger lead for him or her. The thing is that if you utilize your Zoroark to disguise of one of these Pokemon, your opponent might fake out the Zoroark, which is not going to work, and then you are just going to be doing a lot of damage with Hyper Voice. And yeah, this is basically the trick of using Zoroark. You want to use Zoroark to absorb a lot of pressure by utilizing illusion with your main offensive Pokemon, right? Bait your opponent into attacking the Hisuian Zoroark and then just demolish them with the Hisuian Zoroark. So yeah, I think that these Pokemon, these two Pokemon here are really good together because you can utilize them really efficiently against your opponent. For example, Incineroar is a good Pokemon against Hisuian Zoroark, but you can, let's say that in your second game, in your first game, you used the Zoroark to disguise of the Kingambit turn 1. In the second game, you can just go for the Kingambit. You can just go for the real Kingambit and a partner Pokemon, and your opponent might think, well, he's just going to leave Zoroark again, or that is Zoroark on the field, and then switch an Incineroar in, or perhaps utilize Icy Wind or something like that, right? Giving the boost to Kingambit. So there's a lot of mind games that you can utilize, and this is why I think that Hisuian Zoroark is one of the best Pokemon that you can use, but also one of the riskiest Pokemon that you can use. And yeah, that's it. As for leads, Zoroark with Whimsicott is amazing. Utilize Regidrago or Kingambit as your disguised Pokemon. I wouldn't recommend using Urshifu because any priority move is just going to KO the Zoroark, so you don't want to make it so that your opponent just goes for a priority move onto the Zoroark. And Urshifu, I mean, a lot of people just see an Urshifu, see red, and go for the Grassy Glide Thunderclap, and so you do not want that, right? So masquerading yourself as the Kingambit Regidrago is pretty good. You can also lead with the Whimsicott Regidrago, which is really good, but as you guys know, this Pokemon is prone to fake out, so you do have to be careful about that. And yeah, I think that there's not a lot that I can say about the leads, but the thing about this team is more the position of the Zoroark, when you use the Zoroark and why you use the Zoroark. This is why I say that this team is quite complex. It's just because like you have so many ways that you can use Zoroark that sometimes, you know, it's just too many options. And I do think that you have to put a lot of hours into this Pokemon to use it effectively. So yeah, this is a team breakdown. I'm sorry that I just yep too much. I'm really sorry about that, but this is a really interesting team, but it's a complex team, and yeah, I just yapped a little bit too much, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, this is a team breakdown, and let's dive into the games. So our first opponent has a pretty cool team of Urshifu, Amoonguss, Fluttermane, Insane, Raging Bolt and Roaring Moon. I think his team is pretty cool. And yeah, so what's the first thing that we are accounting for? Well, we can see that our opponent does have an Amoonguss and Insane, so I can expect a little bit of more of a balanced type team, especially with the Calm and Raging Bolt as well, right? But he also has an offensive mode with the Choice Specs Flutter, Tailwind, Roaring Moon and the Urshifu. So what I'm thinking is that my opponent will likely lead with either Amoonguss or Insane and either the Fluttermane or the Raging Bolt, so I want to capitalize on that. How can I do this? I can threaten him with a lot of spread damage. And how can I do that? Well, with the utilization of the Hisuian Zoroark and Whimsicott, which is going to make us do a lot of pressure, or apply a lot of pressure to our opponent, because both of them are immune to Fake Out if I terrestrialize my Whimsicott, and I'm going to disguise my Zoroark with the Regidrago so that I can truly threaten my opponent with a huge attack, either Dragon Energy, Draco Meteor, or Earth Power. So my opponent does have to respect that, right? And yeah, this is, I think, quite good for us. He leads with the Raging Bolt and Among Us, so I'm quite confident here with my Zoroark and Whimsicott. I don't want to reveal the Zoroark right away, so I choose to go for the Protect. We scout out the Terra. I went for the Moonblast to keep my opponent humble, right? So yeah, we now know what our opponent wants to do. He went for the Calm Mind and Spore, a really passive play, so I want to capitalize on this, right? And what can I actually do? Well, I do have a lot of pressure right now with the Encore and Tailwind, so my opponent does have to respect that, and I'm just going to Encore the Among Us. Encoring the Among Us is pretty good, because now we can't do anything, like using the Spore won't do anything, because we do have a Grass type and a Safety Goggles Pokemon. He truly tried to went for the Sludge Bomb onto the Whimsicott, but because we Encored it, he wasn't able to. So we are in a pretty good position. I think we do pressure Raging Bolt quite well with the King Gambit. Raging Bolt is boosting its special defense, not its physical defense, so this is quite chill for us. He goes for the Protect on the Raging Bolt, which is interesting because now the Raging Bolt is going to be locked into the Protect, which is odd, like really odd that he did that. Maybe a misplay. So we Encore the Protect. I was expecting him to get the double Protect, so I actually went for the Flutter Mane. That is completely fine, because we end up getting a Defiant boost from the Flutter Mane and getting the KO. So we are in a fantastic position. Our opponent does bring the Incineroar now, which is, amazing for us, right? I am expecting the Fake Out, so onto the King Gambit, so I want to protect the King Gambit. And the Whimsicott can just do whatever. Using the Tailwind is cool. We did know that the Protect was going to be successful right now, so yeah, we actually are in a good position still. I am going to go for the Iron Head into the Raging Bolt. I'm expecting a switch from the Raging Bolt, right, and a Flare Blitz onto the King Gambit, but I'm still in a fantastic position because the Raging Bolt is going to lose his stacks, right, and I can bring a new Pokemon in. In this case, I want it to be the Zoroark, right, because they do have the Terra Fairy Raging Bolt. My opponent, like I said, might switch the Among Us in for the Raging Bolt. That is fine. That is completely fine. We do absorb a lot of pressure, right? So we went for the Moonblast onto the Insane, getting a little bit of cheap damage. Iron Head does immense damage to the Among Us. Cotocliff would have probably KO'd, but it is what it is. I now get a free switch into the supposedly Regidrago that is actually the Zoroark. And now you're going to be seeing an amazing stuff from our Hisuian Zoroark. Check this out. Life Form, Stellar Terra, Helping Hand, Hyper Voice. Just obliterates the Incineroar and does 70% to the Raging Bolt. Like, I think that's amazing, and my opponent cannot do anything about this because I am faster than both of them, right? I do have helping hand pressure, so the Among Us is going down. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty fun. I think this endgame is ours. So yeah, let's see. Helping hand, Hyper Voice again. The Thunderclap does crit and does take us out, which is really unfortunate because now we were in a really good position, but now because of that critical hit we are now probably going to lose. Earth Power won't be enough to take the Raging Bolt. I assume that it can't, right? And yeah, we cannot Dragon Energy because the Raging Bolt is Fairy Terra. We cannot really touch the Among Us either, so I think it's pretty over. If we are able to kill the Among Us, maybe we can do something if my opponent goes for the Thunderclaps only, but I really doubt that. I really doubt that. So yeah, we had a good game so far, and yeah, but we couldn't bring it home. But yeah, this is completely fine. It would have been amazing for us to get the KO on the Among Us, right? Because if we did, that Raging Bolt would be a little bit threatened, but I still don't think that we would have lost. As we saw in the chat logs, the Dragon Pulse just one-shotted the Regidrago, so yeah, a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? We do know, like from the team breakdown, I do explain that the Zoroark is pretty frail, right? And yeah, that is just something that we have to account for. But that's totally fine. But yeah, I don't want an endgame where Raging Bolt is just freely stacking Calm Minds or stuff like that, so I do have to be wary about that. Until that point we were just dominating the match, right? But like I said, like Raging Bolt just does so much, and that is just basically because of Thunderclap. Thunderclap is just such a strong move, right? A priority move, and does a lot of damage. Raging Bolt by itself is pretty strong, pretty bulky, so it's almost like a raid boss. And yeah, I mean, we do have to account for this. I'm thinking about his prior lead, which was the Among Us and Raging Bolt, and I kinda want to counter that. I don't know if my opponent is going to utilize that lead or not. We see the Among Us and the Roaring Moon, so we at least got one, which is pretty nice. The Among Us here is basically useless, so I do want to have that in consideration, right? Looking for the Roaring Moon, we haven't saw it yet. We now know that it's Terra Poison, it has Acrobatics, Breaking Swipe, Tailwind and Protect. I'm just seeing here if I could just leverage a KO, right? Onto the Among Us, which we know that we aren't able to due to the previous game. Just wanted to check some damage rolls. Countercleave, I think it's a cool move. I want to go onto the offensive here because I don't want my opponent to just freely set up a Tailwind for its Flutter main to just stat check us. I really don't want that. So I wanted to do a little bit of cheap damage. I know that my opponent is very likely just going to go for the Tailwind here, and that is something that I really dislike, but I can't do anything about it, right? And this team does not have a way to taunt the opponent, so I just have to try to capitalize on, you know, just getting a KO. I think that's the thing that I have to do right now. So yeah, I'm just going to go straight for damage. I want that Among Us out, because if the Among Us is out, we are in a fantastic position. My opponent does end up switching into the Raging Bolt, so the Raging Bolt is going to be taking a lot of damage. So this was a fantastic turn for us. He is going to recover 12% of his HP, which is really significant, but I mean, it was really, really good for us. I now want to keep my opponent humble once again, so let's see. So in this position I'm just going to double attack the Raging Bolt. If he went for the Terra Fairy, we would have KO'd with the Grassy Glide, but to double up onto it, it's just going to get the KO. That critically didn't matter. By the way, he was just so low HP, it really didn't matter. If he went for the Protect, I think he could have just leveraged a lot of more pressure out of his Pokemon, but that's fine. Now we do have the double priority onto the Kingambit and the Rillaboom, so we don't really care about my opponent's Tailwind. This is another mode that this team has, and we do get lucky. We do get the special attack drop, which is going to give us a Defiant boost and just, you know, make our Kingambit that much threatening, right? Because I know I went for the Grassy Glide last turn, I do know that the Flutterman cannot leave another one, and I do know that it does not have a way to protect itself. The Among Us can come in to tank the Grassy Glide, but I think I do have to keep my opponent humble, right? I don't want him to just play offensively. And yeah, as you guys can see, these two Pokemon just do a lot of damage and pressure our opponent quite a bunch. We do lose our Rillaboom, but I don't mind that, to be honest. I really don't. And now we bring the Zoroark, and this is just beautiful, because my opponent is thinking that, I mean, at least I'm thinking that he's thinking that if he goes for the Rage Powder, he's just going to be in a fantastic position, because the Urshifu can't touch the Among Us, and so he can neutralize the Urshifu that way. But we are the Hisuian Zoroark, right? So if the Among Us wants to redirect our attack, I mean, it's going to lose a lot of HP. I do go for the Protect. I know that my opponent wants to go for the Tailwind. I don't feel pressured at all by that Roaring Moon, like nothing at all. Even if he goes for the Tailwind, I'm just in a fantastic position. I can just go for the Galactic Cleave or the Sucker Punch into the Roaring Moon. I think that the Roaring Moon wants to attack this turn, so I can do that, but it's a gamble, right? Because he can just switch the Roaring Moon. I do go for the Sucker Punch, like I said. He goes for the Acrobatics, which does not take the KO, and now we went for the Hyper Voice and take out the Among Us and do a bit of chip damage to the Roaring Moon. So yeah, a fantastic position, because we can just Sucker Punch the Fluttermane. He cannot do anything about that, and I do think that the Roaring Moon cannot KO the Urshifu, and if he does KO the Urshifu, we are in Sucker Punch endgame, so we can always win. So yeah, we protected with Urshifu. I want to play it slow, but you guys just saw what happened, right? We just checkmated our opponent basically with a Sucker Punch mid-game, and yeah, it was fantastic. That attack drop, that special attack drop onto the Kingambit just did so much for us, so much. Truly fantastic. But now we are in a tricky position, because my opponent was not consistent in the second game, right? So I don't know what he actually wants to do. I'm going to try to play a little bit of a mental game with him, because Kingambit and Rillaboom did quite well, right? So, and you guys saw that he did quite well. So I think I'm just going to try to trick my opponent into thinking that I'm leading with the same Pokemon, right? In the last game, the Hisuian Zoroark was one of my least used Pokemon. not one of my least used, but it was in the back, and yeah, I'm just trying to leverage this. I think that the king, discussing as the king gambit here is really good because my opponent has the Urshifu, and if he goes for the close combat onto the king gambit, you guys know what's going to happen, right? He's going to miss, because, well, Zoroark is not affected by this, right? I apologize, I'm just so we do go for the Terrafire, I mean, and the Grassy Light onto the Urshifu, trying to humble my opponent. And yeah, we now show that we are the Hisuian Zoroark, so I maybe should have played a little bit slower with the King Gambit, maybe protect the King Gambit, and go for the Grassy Glide onto the Urshifu, try to keep that Urshifu humble, right? But now the Urshifu does have a little bit of pressure onto us. The good thing here is that we do have a lot of pressure with the Rillaboom still, because that Urshifu is Terra Water, I mean, so we cannot do anything about this. We do get the critical hit onto the Urshifu, which is amazing. I went for the Hyper Voice. I wasn't expecting a switch, so it was well played by my opponent. I should have just went for the neutral play, but I didn't think that I had to predict that switch. Now we are still in a good position because we do have priority moves. This is why my last video is really important. I'm going to link the video right here, but this is why you want these type of attacks, these priority attacks. Just ignores tailwind pressure, and it's fantastic. And my opponent does not have a way to counter my priority moves, right? So that is just fantastic. We saw that my opponent went for the breaking swipe, and he knows that I have the King Gambit in the back, which is really odd, right? Maybe I can just leverage that. If my opponent ignores my King Gambit, I can just take control of the game, in my opinion. Cycling the fake out would be really helpful, so I am going to switch the Rillaboom. Unfortunately, I couldn't just leverage the Intimidate because the Flutter Mane was faster, but you know, the game plan was there. We do leverage the breaking swipe that my opponent was recklessly using, right? Because he knew that I had the King Gambit. He could have just played a mind game with me in that position, but he didn't, and that is going to cost him dearly, because now we have a +2 King Gambit, right? And that is fantastic. I do protect the King Gambit, trying to wait out the fake out, which we do in a really good way, and now we do a lot of damage with the Hisuian Zoroark. This Hyper Voice is slowly chipping my enemy. Not my enemy, my opponent, and my opponent just recognizes that it cannot do anything. The Flutter Mane is going to get KO by the Sucker Punch, and we do have the Hyper Voice pressure, so yeah, he could not do anything, and that is GG. So let's go into the next game. And so we found another opponent. This opponent has a balanced team. This balanced team is similar to the team that Paul Chue utilized to win the EUIC this year, and so yeah, it is an extremely competent balanced team, as you guys can see. And yeah, I think that Zoroark is good against these teams, right? But you do have to play really smart with it. But this, like, the utilization of Zoroark is quite difficult in my opinion. And you do have to have a lot of games with it to utilize it to the fullest of its abilities, which I think it's, you know, extremely important. So because this is a balanced team and is a team that is really preoccupied with the rotation of fake out and the support of the team, I do want to go with my offensive lead, this being the Zoroark and the Whimsicott. I was of course expecting a fake out onto either one of my Pokemon, and my opponent does not do that. This does allow me to just KO the Fluttermane, but now my opponent knows that this is not a Regidrago but the Zoroark. I think I'm still in a good position here because I can just attack with the Zoroark and go for the Tailwind. I am expecting my opponent to just go for the Follow Me. It does not, it goes for the Grassy Glide, KOing my Whimsicott, but I think that Whimsicott did a good job already. But now we are in an awful position. And why is that? I did utilize the Terra Ghost on the Whimsicott, which I kinda shouldn't have, right? I should have been more patient with it, but I was afraid that the Fluttermane was going to KO my Zoroark, and so I want to go for the most offensive play that I could. But now I have basically a death Pokemon on my field, and that is the Urshifu, because the Ogerpon can KO it, the Raging Bolt can KO it, both with priority moves, so this is not good for me at all. I do have the Regidrago and the Zoroark still, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do anything. My opponent does go for the Thunderclap and Grassy Glide onto my side of the field. The Grassy Glide does allow for the KO of the Zoroark, and the Thunderclap was to threaten my Urshifu, which I switched and therefore failed. But now I'm still in an awful position because I can't KO the Ogerpon from this range with Aqua Jet. And he does just switch into the Rillaboom, right? So I am going to go for the Protect and Dragon Energy. We do KO the Rillaboom, which is awesome, but we do lose our Regidrago, and now we have one Pokemon against two that both can just KO me, right? One with Thunderclap and the other one with the Grassy Glide. So this one is just completely over. So we need to change something for this next game, because we got just rolled in this first one. So what am I thinking? I think that of course, the Raging Bolt is extremely important for my opponent, right? I want to see what my opponent used to lead, because I forgot it, and it was the Rillaboom with the Raging Bolt. So I want to play around this. And how can I do this? Well, the Raging Bolt does put a lot of pressure on me, right? With the Thunderclap and the Calm Mind. And the Urshifu and the Rillaboom, I mean, with that Grassy Glide is just really annoying. So I do have to play my cards quite well. I do think that Urshifu and Rillaboom are a good lead, because I can just terrestrialize my Urshifu, and Terra Fairy Urshifu is just amazing in this current meta, because that team cannot do much. This was something that Carrie Thornton had talked about when he won the Toronto Regional, and yeah, Terra Fairy Urshifu is just completely amazing, because it walls not only Rillaboom, but it also walls the Fire Ogerpons, right? And that is amazing, as well as the Incineroars. So that's something that we could consider, right? My opponent does go for a good read, the fake out into the Rillaboom. I could have fake out their Rillaboom, but as you guys saw, they actually were the ones that set up the Grassy Surge, the Grassy Terrain with the Grassy Surge. So it means that their Rillaboom is faster than my own. I do switch into the Kingambit, expecting the Icy Wind, because they went for the Thunder Wave previously, and I had to roll. I had to take my chances here, because either my opponent is going to go for another Thunder Wave, which I don't want my Urshifu to be Thunder Waved, or they are going to go for the Icy Wind so that they can pressure my own Rillaboom and my Urshifu still. They end up going for the Icy Wind, which was amazing, and so we have now a +2 Kingambit, which is phenomenal. I do go for the high horsepower onto the Rillaboom slot, but they go for the terrestrialization, which is smart, but they are now in a tricky position where I can just Iron Head their Raging Bolt, so it's a tricky position for them. I can Iron Head their Raging Bolt, I can also Wood Hammer their Raging Bolt, and they do not resist these moves, so I think that we are in a good position, but we do have to play carefully. So I did went for the Protect to bait out the Thunderclap, because I think that Thunderclap mind games are really important now, and because King Gambit is slower than the Raging Bolt, the Thunderclap is actually going to work out and the Sucker Punch is going to fail. That is why I'm just going for these Protect mind games. I cannot terrestrialize my King Gambit, right, because it would be weak to the Raging Bolt, even though it would be a good terror against the Rillaboom, so I do not want to terrestrialize it. And playing these Protect mind games is really important, because like I said, one Thunderclap it won't KO us, but it will put us in range, so I do have to play these games. I go for the offensive. My opponent does switch, recognizing that it would get KO'd by the Wood Hammer, and so I just go for the offense here. I am going to go for the Kowtow Cleave onto the Rillaboom, dealing a massive amount of damage, and now the terrain is over. So this is actually awesome, because as you guys saw, their Ogerpon does not have Follow Me, so this means that I can actually just go for the Sucker Punch pretty freely. If they had Follow Me, I would be really worried, but they are a Swords Dance set, and so yeah, this is quite good for me. I do have the Terra of Fire that I could go to survive the Ogerpon, but I don't think it's necessary. I really want to save up the Terra of Fire for my Urshifu. Terrafire Urshifu, like I said, is really good. So we do take their Rillaboom, which is phenomenal. And now I'm going to try to bait my opponent with a Zoroark, or I'm just going to go for the Urshifu offense. Both of these options are quite good in my opinion. I do go for the Urshifu, and now this is the thing, like my opponent does have a +2 Ogerpon, but they do not have the Grassy Terrain for the priority Grassy Glide, and I am just going to go for the Terra Fire. So the Thunderclap will not KO my Urshifu, and my Urshifu has pressure on both of their Pokemon. So yeah, this is a really important thing. Rillaboom is just doing an amazing work here, I think. Doing cheap damage to my opponent. My opponent is ignoring it, so I think that I like that scenario. But yeah, just going to go for the KO onto the Ogerpon slot. I think it's the best option because it is a +2 Ogerpon, which is really threatening. But we don't manage to KO that Ogerpon, which is really unfortunate. I thought we would be able to do that. I thought that their Ogerpon was actually more on the offensive side, but we are still in a good position. And why is that? Well, we do have our Zoroark. My opponent cannot KO both my Rillaboom and my Zoroark, so I think I'm in a good position. My opponent did well by going into the Protect to just get a little bit of leftovers recovery, but yeah, like you guys saw, the Zoroark solo Hyper Voice just demolished that Raging Bolt, right? Zoroark has a lot of damage, and because that Raging Bolt did not have any Calm Mind boosts, that meant that we could just KO it. So we are now 1-1, and this game is kind of hard actually. I have not tried this team against a balanced team, so I am just learning as I play. But yeah, as you guys can see, in this game and in the previous one, like playing with this team is actually a little bit hard. I do think that you have to put a little bit of effort into playing with this team, like mentally preparing yourself with your leads, and not only that, but with the feints that you want to do, because Zoroark is extremely strong, but you do have to know when to use Zoroark, right? So I think that's one of the things that makes this Pokemon so good, but at the same time so complex. So yeah, we do lead with the Raging Bolt Rillaboom into their own Rillaboom Raging Bolt. I'm trying to bait my opponent into not going into the Terra Fairy, but if they do go for the Terra Fairy, they actually don't lose anything. If they don't go for the Terra Fairy, I can just do a lot of damage to them, right? Going into the Terra Steel here is a bit risky, but yeah, my opponent just completely reads my play, which is a little bit, you know, concerning, because now I'm in a tricky position. My Urshifu is not useless, but it's the positioning of the Urshifu is going to be really hard. I'm just going to go for the normal route that I've been going, and that is the Wood Hammer into the Raging Bolt. We do get the special defense drop onto the Raging Bolt, which is quite good because we will be doing more damage next turn, right? But yeah, taking out this Raging Bolt is going to be, it's going to be a little bit hard. The good thing is that Rillaboom is actually doing good consistent damage, so I cannot complain. Bringing the Urshifu here would not be that bad actually, because it would bait our opponent a little bit. We could tank the Flare Blitz as well, so I don't think it's bad. And as we will see, our opponent Incineroar is slower than the Rillaboom, which is good to know, and they go for the Parting Shot. With the Parting Shot, we will not be able to KO this Urshifu with a Grassy Glide, so I do have to be mindful about that. And that Urshifu kinda can't do much to us, so I'm just going to go for those mind games that I spoke of previously, those Aqua Jet mind games, to go around the Thunderclaps. My opponent is playing really well and just KOs my Rillaboom. He recognized that the Rillaboom was a big threat in the previous game, so yeah. And to be honest, I think I'm not seeing the angle here. I don't know how I'll win this, to be honest. I will just go for the Aqua Jet mind games still, because we are doing good damage, but I think that the Thunderclap is just going to KO our Zoroark, so I'm really worried about this. Really worried. Going for the close combat this turn is not it. I don't think is it. I should have just keep going for the Aqua Jet and just cheap the Raging Bolt and then attack with the what's his name, the Zoroark. But what I didn't consider here was that the Zoroark was faster than the Urshifu. That was just an incredible mistake by me, because I thought that the Urshifu would be faster than the Zoroark, and so I just completely threw the game by doing this. I actually just did it, and yeah, I don't see how we will win with this outcome here, but I think that this kind of showcases that you do need really good planning to use this team, because now we are going to get Thunderclapped and die. Yep, exactly that. To use this team, I mean, you do need a lot of planning. I think it's a complex team. It is a hard team, but it's one that I would suggest using, because I think that Zoroark has a lot of potential, but it is a hard Pokemon to use. And to be honest, I finished this game. I did recognize the mistakes that I did, and to be honest, I'm not disappointed by losing. I think that we could have won that game, but the lack of experience that I had with the team was showing in this game with a more consistent team. And yeah, I just wanted to end the battle section here, because now I'm actually extremely excited to test the team out a little bit more. Not only the team, but Zoroark itself. I think that Zoroark is absolutely amazing, and I want to play with that Pokemon even more. So yeah, today we had fewer battles, not because the team is bad, but because the team is complex, or so complex that I actually just want to learn more about it, and I actually want to make another video just talking about Zoroark and how to use Zoroark. But yeah, this is for sure a Pokemon that you need to put in the hours and the effort into understanding not only its kit, its damage output, but also its feints, the way that you can maximize the utilization of the illusion ability, and its own typing. The normal and ghost typing are extremely good in this meta, I think. And yeah, I just ended the games because I want to learn more. So I apologize for not doing more games, especially because I won one set and lost the other one. But yeah, I mean, really good team, and I think that you should try it out. If you enjoyed the video so far, a like and a subscribe would be greatly appreciated. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. But yeah, you can expect more content, not only on this Pokemon, but on VGC itself. I'll be posting more, actually, and this is actually the last video that I'm doing with a voiceover. I finally have internet, and I am finally able to record videos at my place, so now it's going to be really easy to just do more games, to do a little bit more research, and come up with more teams to showcase. Yeah, thank you, Drew Bliss, for showcasing how powerful Hisuian Zoroark is, and it's definitely a Pokemon that I will be using more. So yeah, I'll be seeing you guys in the next one, and thank you all for watching so far. See ya!